Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, Wooden Railway Adventures, Episode 11, Frank and the Trucks. Frank is a new diesel that works on the island of Sodor. Sir Topham has not given him a job to do yet, as he still doesn't know what Frank is good at. So in the meantime, Frank must pull troublesome trucks around Sodor. He likes it because then he can see all the beautiful sights of the island. One day, he was sitting at the docks talking to Cranky the Crane when he heard a whistle. He did not recognize it, but when the engine puffed in, he did. It was Duke, but unfortunately he wasn't puffing in. Some trucks were pushing him, and he couldn't stop. "Oh, help, help!" cried Duke. "I can't stop." Unfortunately, the signalman didn't have time to switch the points, and he ran into a siding and crashed into the ocean. "Oh, bother," said Duke. Frank thought it was funny. "Huh," he said, "you let two troublesome trucks and a brake van push you into the ocean? Huh, that'll be one for the record." "It's not funny," said Duke. "I'm very old. My brakes don't work as well." "Oh, I'm sure they don't," said Frank. But he really didn't know that Duke was a very old engine. He was being sarcastic. "Can you go get help?" said Duke. These cars are for the construction site, and if I do not get them there on time, the fat controller will not be pleased." "You can go get your help yourself," said Frank. "I can't. I'm stuck here. Look at me." "Well, I'm not certainly giving you any help. How about you go ask whatever that engine is? His name is Ben, for your information." "Oh, whatever," he said. "Anyway, I have a train to pull. Goodbye." And he puffed away. "I'm not going to sit here watching engines get pushed into the ocean by trucks." Duke was very unhappy about this. "I wish something would go right back at him," said Duke, "and then he could learn his lesson." That afternoon, Frank was to pull a special train. It was full of troublesome trucks, and the trucks had heard of what Frank had done to Duke. Scruffy had decided to do a plan. "We usually don't help the engines on this," he said, "but Duke is a very nice engine, and I have to agree with him. Frank needs to be paid out, and so how about let's do it?" The trucks agreed. "Here's what we'll do. He doesn't have experience with any troublesome trucks at all," said Scruffy, "and so when we go up Gordon's Hill, we'll hold back on him, and so then he'll have trouble getting up. But when he reaches the top, then we'll push him down, and so, well, you get the point from there, don't you?" And the trucks agreed. "Oh, look, here he comes. Here's our chance." Frank and Prink puffed in. Just then, the signal turned green, and Frank hurried away. "I mustn't be late," he said. "I mustn't be late." And he ran through the tunnel. Up ahead was Gordon's Hill. "Stick to the plan," said Scruffy. "We will," said the trucks. They held back on Frank. "Oh, stop it, you troublesome trucks," he said. This train's very important." But the trucks didn't let go. "Oh, fine," he said. But he pulled even harder, and he got up the hill. "Now for plan B," whispered Scruffy. Frank began to run down the hill. "Whee!" he said. "This is so much fun." "Now," said Scruffy, and they pushed Frank down the hill. "Oh," said Frank, "what was that? You aren't supposed to push me." "We can if we want," said the trucks. "We're troublesome trucks, and we've tricked you. Now you can't stop." And indeed he couldn't. "Help, help," he said, and he raced into the yard. The engines at the shed were very surprised. "Be careful," said Henry. "Percy's milk train is sitting in a siding, and it's for Farmer Cole. You mustn't hit it, or it could be very disastrous." But Frank didn't hear a word. Frank continued over the arched stone bridge and barely missed Spencer and the Duke and Duchess as he came around the corner, and he flew into the yard. "That was close," he said, but just then he realized something. It was Percy's milk train, and Percy was sitting in the siding enjoying himself. "Ah," he said, "I'm too late," and he crashed into the train. Percy was very surprised. One moment he had been sitting on the side and resting, and the next he had heard a splintering crash, and he was uprooted on Frank. And all Frank could see was blackness. "Oh," he said, "help, help!" But Percy was even crosser. "Look what you've done," he said. "You've shattered the soda-line caboose, and those tankers for Farmer McColl, and your own train's in a mess, too. You're very silly, Frank." "I'm sorry," he said. And Annie, Clarabelle, and Henrietta had to agree. It took a while for the breakdown train to get there, so Frank decided to tell a story to Percy, which was a bad idea. Percy soon told every engine on Sodor, and soon the whole island knew about it. And also, Sir Topham Hatt found out too, and he wasn't pleased. But now, Frank knows not to play tricks on the other engines, or speak bad about them. He knows it's not a very nice thing to do.